Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another The Sports Scoop video. We just saw NFL free agency is coming to a close. Technically, still players can be signed, but we've seen majority of the big name guys either leave their teams or join a new team, as well as trade. So that will be included in this, although it does say free agency grade. It's kind of grading the offseason, the acquisitions that teams have had so far. And today, as you saw by the title, we're doing the AFC. We'll be doing the NFC probably tomorrow or another day, but we've had a ton of work, and finally we don't have as much. So a ton more content will be coming out. We'll probably be live streaming sometime this weekend. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. But I'm joined by my host, Suraj. Suraj, how you doing today?
Pretty good. Thanks. How about you?
Good. Feel good. It's almost Friday.
Oh, yes.
Depending on when this comes out. But as always, make sure you guys subscribe, follow us on social media. And yeah, we'll be going over all of the AFC teams, grading their offseason. The AFC was definitely the more interesting conference in terms of moves and just how good teams got. We'll be going over all the grades, breaking down, and getting all into it. So as always, you know how it goes. But Serge, we're gonna hop in to your favorite teams division, the division that a lot of us have that on the channel. We have a lot of, I wouldn't say hatred for, but there's a lot of people have a lot of teams they like in it. You with the Jets, Dylan with the Dolphins, and me being what they say, a closeted Jets fan, although I'm not. But we have the Miami Dolphins at an A-. Obviously, we saw yesterday the news that came out with Tyreek Hill. I still need I was just sitting last night and like the Dolphins really just traded for Tyreek Hill.
It's insane.
Like, and not only to mention that, it was in the span of 2 hours where it found out he was going to be traded, and then he got traded. And Serge, obviously, your Jets were in the mix, and I wouldn't be very mad if I was a Jets fan and you didn't get Tyreek Hill. We saw how much they gave up for him, but also we saw them do a ton of stuff. They got Connor Williams, they got Teron Armstead. They made a ton of moves, and we have them at an A- here because I do think, and Serge, as much as we don't mean to hate the Dolphins, but our other host Dylan forces us to sometimes. But being completely unbiased, Serge, why do we have them here in A-?
I think really with the Miami Dolphins, they made so many moves and got so many big names. Like, again, obviously not only Tyreek Hill, but they got Teron Armstead. They got Connor Williams also to kind of help their offensive line. They've really kind of invested so much money into the future of their team, like in the future of Tua Tagovailoa, which, the jury's still out on him. But I think really when you make this many moves and didn't obviously Hill, they probably overpaid for him because he isn't. I don't think he's deserves to be the highest paid.
They traded too much for him.
Yeah, and
it just shows what the funniest part is. It shows how delusional Bill O'Brien was, because the Hopkins, who was just as good as Hill at the time, was traded for a second and the corpse of David Johnson.
Same age.
Yeah,
it's just that was a horrible trade. It looks even worse now, and I think really for the Dolphins, I think Hill is a huge piece, but I think paying him $30 million a year is that is a lot of money for a receiver that we don't even know how he is outside of the Andy Reid system. He's not going to be with Patrick Mahomes. Said he's going to be with a most likely inferior quarterback in Tua. He's got doesn't have like an elite tight end like Travis Kelce. I know Gesicki is good, but yet they obviously aren't at the same level. But that being said, again, they addressed key positions of need and addressed also kind of additional skill positions. So I think for that reason, they have to get in the A range. So A- for me.
Yeah, and then we obviously saw as well, completely forgot they brought in Chase Edmonds, Raheem Mostert. So I think the Dolphins, their grade here is it's definitely deserved. They addressed, besides offensive line, which I think was a little bit underwhelming, but obviously the draft is still to come. I think Teron Armstead was a fantastic signing. Them going and getting him was huge. But you look at that offense, the transformation they have now with the backfield they have with Mostert, Edmonds. It's a very fast team, obviously, and then you have Hill, Jalen Waddle. So Devontae Parker, and it's a really good team. We obviously brought in Cedric Wilson. Then obviously, Serge, we brought in Teddy Bridgewater, who at the end of the day may end up being the starter at the end of the season for them.
Who knows? I mean,
I think
Tua's been very with the injury concerns we've had with him the past few years. Don't be surprised if he plays a game or two. Obviously, isn't a better option than Tua, but
I don't know. I don't know if I would argue that Tua is a marginally better quarterback than Teddy Bridgewater. Again,
he is a better quarterback.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, right.
I don't really.
But I love, first of all, that Edmonds Mostert move. I love. I think that's a great move. Again, I have a special place in my heart for Myles Gaskin, so that's a little bit tough to see him now drop to that RB3 again. Maybe he'll still be using the receiving game, but bringing in Edmonds kind of deflates that ability for him. But again, I think the Dolphins addressed majority of position they needed to get. They surrounded Tua with talent, and now it's the question is, can Tua go and perform? I think that's what they've done. They've kind of given a proposition to Tua, like, look what we've done. We literally just traded for Tyreek Hill. We got arguably the best free agent on the market in Teron Armstead.
Yep.
We brought in a ton of talent. Let's see what you can do. And then again, the defense, not much, but we know they already have a ton of talent on that side of the ball. But big fan of it. At the end of the day, I think the Dolphins did a ton of moves. I think if you're a Dolphins fan, there's definitely a lot to be excited for, because you look at what the Patriots did versus what the Dolphins is. You could see them kind of them bunny hop the Patriots in the division this year. But we'll move on to the next team, and that is the Patriots. And Suraj, I know you had them at a little bit of a higher grade.
I had a higher grade there.
Offseason. They have this and again, it's Bill Belichick, so I hate to, because all media is like, what are the Patriots doing? Then we're going to see them be fantastic next year. But they are seeming to think that they can go and not sign a big name receiver with a quarterback who cannot do much without talent around him. And I know last year was last year he didn't have that number one main guy, but I think this next step for Mac Jones is having that number one guy, is having his Devontae Smith like he had in Alabama, at Alabama. They just didn't really do much. They brought back Malcolm Butler. But besides that, they traded Shaq Mason for a 5th round pick. And again, if you're Patriots fans, there's not much to be kind of worried. That's not as worrisome because you know how good the Patriots are in the draft with drafting offensive linemen, but Malcolm Butler, and they re-signed Trent Brown. And besides that, really nothing. So again, in a division like this, and not only that, in an AFC that is so competitive this year, it's ridiculous to not do anything in free agency when you had money and there was talent out there. I just don't understand why they didn't go and do anything.
Yeah, I think really it almost seems like they are setting up to kind of not necessarily tank, because the Patriots don't really tank, but they are kind of almost conceding that they're not going to be contenders in the AFC this season. I mean, maybe they could because of freaking Patriots magic, but
yeah,
they have not done enough to address key positions of need. Like cornerback, I know they got Malcolm Butler, but he isn't the same player he was when he last left New England. Trent Brown, I mean, I like that they re-signed him, and that's a good piece, but you also lost Ted Karras and Shaq Mason, and you lost Joe Tooney the year before. So this offensive line is really kind of getting weaker and weaker, which is really not something you want to happen, especially if you're a team like the Patriots who really pride themselves on being one of the better teams in terms of the trenches. And I think New England, they still got a solid roster, but I really don't see them making the playoffs if they don't get more reinforcements in there soon. So I wouldn't personally have them at an F, but I think they are one of the lower teams, especially in the AFC.
And I think especially for the Patriots, it's just starting to show how much more important the offseason is starting to become for NFL teams. I know that doesn't sound right.
No, it makes sense because like
how important it is now to like, it's very hard to not do much, no matter how good you are, to not do much in free agency or in the draft and retain, the spot you were. But that's what we have for the Patriots. We'll move on now to the Buffalo Bills, who we saw. I'm just going to paint this picture. You signed one of the best defensive players in the NFL on a 6-year deal. Great. But then you notice it's Von Miller and he's 32 years old. So I think there's a little bit of pros and cons there. I was very, very, very surprised when I found out it was a 6-year deal. He will be 30.
I think the thing is though, I think after 3 years, they have an opt-out. They have an opt-out phase, which they're probably, it's really like a 3-year contract. I'm not 100% sure, but he's probably only going to be there until he's like 35, which is still pretty old. And still a pretty big contract.
I don't think this will be the kind of thing where he'll run those 6 years and then look for a new contract.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So we'll keep you there. But again, I think they did a lot of underrated things. They obviously brought in OJ Howard. They brought in Roger Saffold, a Pro Bowl offensive lineman. They let go of a couple of their offensive linemen. Feliciano went to the Giants. But again, not too much. The Von Miller one was the massive one. And I think it was a great, great signing. I think with the Bills, the Bills have a lot of, I don't know how to explain it. A lot of they don't have those explosive defensive linemen like Von Miller, those, really disruptive players. They have a lot of, stick to the basics defensive linemen, if you know what I mean. Like they don't have that one guy who pops. I think Von Miller just adds a factor of just intimidation to that defensive line. And I think it's really interesting because the Bills don't necessarily, and in terms of Von Miller's fit there, it's not confusing, but you look at what Von Miller was able to do at the Rams. He wasn't necessarily that edge rusher because you had Leonard Floyd, but he's able to come off the edge. So here, are they going to put him down as that 4-3 edge? Or are they going to run a 3-4 and have Von Miller come off? No matter what, we know he's going to be pressuring the quarterback, but is he going to be lining up for, lining up one-on-one, or is he going to be coming in from the outside? So that would be my only question. I still love the signing. I think it's a
Mm.
really, really good deal. And again, make some contenders. And then again, they retain most of their talent. They resigned McKenzie. They released Cole Beasley. But I still think they're the best team in this division.
Oh yeah, clearly the best team in this division. I like what they did too. I think Von Miller obviously is high the big
Yeah,
signing,
right.
and I like it. But I think they also made some underrated signings. I think Saffold they got for very, very cheap. Howard, OJ Howard, he was kind of underused in the Tampa Bay because of the amount of good tight ends that they had. I also like moving for Jameson Crowder, who was a former
Right.
Jet, who really
Right.
was he could play well. Problem is he wasn't really healthy. And I think if he does stay healthy, he's an upgrade over Cole Beasley in the slot. And I think really they kind of just made moves to kind of just solidify this the receiving core with obviously the move for Howard and for Crowder and kind of just make Josh Allen's life as easy as possible with the moves on the offensive line like Roger Saffold. So I think it was a pretty good offseason for the Buffalo Bills.
Agreed. I think they're not looking like they're in any way going to be contended for that division title. So I think that's the goal is. But now I think, and I know we don't have the best ranking. I think the Jets overall, and again, this is adding more to Dylan's argument that I'm a closet Jets fan. I think the Jets are the best offseason in this division. Again, I think they did exactly what the Jets would do, and that's not making some gigantic signing. Like a Tyreek Hill, like a Von Miller, like going out for one of those guys. But I think what they added to that team, and again, what the Jets need, Surge, at the end of the day, the Jets were just void of any on the backside of that defense. There was nothing. When your best secondary player and secondary weapon is Bryce Hall. Obviously we have Marcus May, but now he's gone.
He was
Bryce Hall. There's definitely a problem. I really like the Jordan Whitehead signing. I really like the DJ Reed signing. I think two really good safeties, not really good, excuse me, but very role playing safeties who definitely can do the job. I think
Whitehead Reed's actually a corner.
Or excuse me, Reed's a corner. You're right. Sorry. Really, I think he used to play free safety.
No. He's small, which makes it look like maybe he'd be like a free safety. But he actually is a corner.
Right. Sorry. So, and then again, they brought in Uzama, Tyler Conklin, adding two good tight ends there. And then obviously the Laken Tomlinson signing, which I think was one of the best signings in free agency. Really good guard. That left side now is secured if Mekhi Becton stays healthy. Really powerful left side of the offensive line. Then obviously you have Elijah Vera Tucker on the other side, and Noah Fant.
George Fant.
Excuse me, Noah Fant. Yeah, tight end playing right tackle. Excuse me, George Fant. And then obviously I lost Morgan Moses to the Ravens, which I didn't love, Suraj. I think Morgan Moses is one of the most durable players in the NFL. So I would have liked to see them retain him, and then they obviously re-signed McGovern to a 2-year deal, if I'm not wrong. So again, it's an offensive line now that if stays healthy is a good offensive line. Like it's good. And then again, you still have the draft where you could maybe target an Ekwonu, which would make that offensive line ridiculously good. Or who knows? I mean, imagine they got Evan Neal, but we're not talking about the draft. But again, I think the pieces they added were great. I think they added a lot of depth around Zach Wilson. And again, I think in the draft is when they were target those explosive players like a receiver, like a Garrett Wilson, Treylon Burks. And then most they go and look at some guy at corner. But again, I think a really good offseason for the Jets. I will not retract my statement saying they have the best offseason looking back at it, but I think they did they were the most efficient in the offseason. Like you saw the Jets make their moves quickly and then they were done. Then they were out. Again, I think they knew the guys, and I think it's again Joe Douglas proving he's a smart GM. And again, I think Saleh will have his players and have a built up team, and we'll see what he can do. But Serge, as a Jets fan, what's your take on what they've done?
Yeah, I mean, I only gave them a B+, but I think that's only because a lot of the other teams got so much better. I think most of our signings are really, again, like you said, not big names, but they were like, we didn't really overpay for anyone, except maybe you could argue Uzama at $8 million is a bit much, but I don't really think it's that big of a deal. But I really like obviously revamping that tight end room, which is like probably the worst in the NFL last year. We had obviously Ryan Griffin was injured, and our best one was probably a very young Kenny Yeboah, but getting Uzama and Conklin is going to be such a huge upgrade to this tight end room. Obviously, Laken Tomlinson, the big signing. I really love that at right guard. Kind of, I'd say solidifies that offensive line, really.
Yeah.
And I've got kind of both of your guards are good. You got a solid center and good tackles. I think our offensive line should be very good if we are healthy. And secondary, very, very important. DJ Reed, one of the more slept on signings in free agency. He put up really good numbers last year. I think it was like he only gave up less than
Right.
400 yards in pass coverage, or maybe less than 500. I have to recheck that again, but he was really one of the better zone cover corners in coverage this year. And Jordan Whitehead, I think it kind of perfectly fits what you need. We saw the Jets were one of the worst run defenses in the National Football League last season. Jordan Whitehead is underrated in pass coverage, but also is one of the better run defending safeties in the NFL. So I'd say, again, a lot of these guys, we filled key positions of need and really didn't overpay for anyone. So we've still got a decent amount of capital left, and we've got a good amount of draft capital. So I'd say this is a pretty good offseason for the Jets.
Yeah, I could agree. So now we're moving on to another division, and we look at the Cincinnati Bengals here at A. So obviously the team we thought would get Teron Armstead, they ended up not getting him, but that offensive line they're good now. Lyle Collins they brought in, Alex Kappa and Ted Karras. So now they have 3 key pieces. You add that with Jonah Williams, and I'm not sure their other guard will most likely be Jackson Carman.
I think Quinn Spain might be
or
also
Quentin
one
Spain.
of the other.
And then you have Carman as that backup center. Or again, I'm not sure. Karras may not be the guy who starts, but
no, Karras will start. I think
yeah,
it'll be
Carman. So then Carman,
sure.
Again, we'll see what the rotation there is, but I think a really good offseason if you're the Cincinnati Bengals, and the offensive line acquisitions are what highlight that. I think going and getting the players I got, I love the Lyle Collins signing. He seems very committed to Joe Burrow, saying he was going to be his bodyguard. And again, committing to Joe Burrow. We know this guy is your quarterback, and we saw how much. I mean, it was. The Bengals did the obvious, what everybody was saying. The reason you lost Super Bowl is because of the offensive line. The reason that Joe Burrow got into the offensive line, it was finally time to address it. You didn't last year with Penei Sewell, but you got Jamar Chase. And I think, again, this just shows to why the Bengals are successful, and it kind of shows their plan. I mean, they got Jamar Chase, and now they go out and they have the line. So I think obviously losses on. But what are some of the other key things? Again, there's so many.
They signed Hayden Hurst also
Hayden Hurst,
as their tight end to
they
kind of
lost
replace Uzama.
Yeah, but not much besides that. I know they released Trey Waynes. They were in
They tagged Jesse Bates also.
Right? Obviously, we did
Very
a video
important.
on that. And then they might be getting Stephon Gilmore. JC Jackson was an option. Obviously, they ended up getting him. But again, like the Jets, like the Dolphins, they addressed the offensive line. That's what they needed to do. And I think they got 3 really good pieces for Joe Burrow there and Joe Mixon. And I think he'll have, if I'm the NFL right now, Joe Burrow having more time than he did in the pocket is scary. So huge fan of the free agency. Again, there's not much to say here. You know, it was kind of what we expected.
Yeah, I think one of the main things that kind of sums it up is that I think with getting Lyle Collins, Ted Karras, and Alex Kappa all cost less combined on the salary cap than Teron Armstead, which is kind of such a huge deal for the Cincinnati Bengals to get 3 guys that can kind of just really kind of secure that right side of the line, because I think they're all going to be playing on the right. Karras obviously at center, you're going to have Kappa at right guard and Collins at right tackle. So I think really they did the most important thing. They shored up the offensive line. They kind of replaced Uzama in free agency with Hayden Hurst, who I think is a very solid replacement, and they tagged Jesse Bates. So they did everything they needed to do, and they didn't really overpay either. So I think it was kind of the perfect offseason if you are a Cincinnati Bengals fan. So they are in pretty good shape for the AFC next season.
Couldn't agree more. We'll move on now to the Steelers, and this grade is mainly, or at least the people's opinions on the Steelers free agency was obviously off that Mitchell Trubisky signing him to a 3. It was 2 years, if I'm right. Or was it 2 years?
I think. Yeah.
Right. 2 year. I think it was. I'm not sure. I don't think it was more than 20 million. They got him on a good deal. But I really liked the free agency. Again, a team I thought might go get Teron Armstead, ended up not getting him. Juju Smith-Schuster walked. But not too much from the Steelers, I guess, actually, kind of looking at. But again, I think they retain pieces, and I think they're kind of the same team. And as much people hate on the Trubisky signing, and while I'm not convinced it may be the option, I think they were missing an electric player. And as much as people have hated on Trubisky, what we've seen from him in the Bills and what we saw the Bears missing when Trubisky wasn't there, I think it showed that he might be the guy, and he may be the answer in Pittsburgh, but not much. Am I missing?
They got a few signings. They did get a few decent signings. They got James Daniels from the Bears. They got Miles Jack from the Jaguars.
Miles Jack, that was a big one.
Levi Wallace also from the Bills, which
Wallace.
They needed a cornerback. I thought they made a lot of solid signings. Obviously, they needed help on that offensive line, which they did with Daniels. They needed kind of a linebacker to kind of help Devin Bush and Robert Spillane, who really struggled last season. And Levi Wallace they lost Mike Hilton the year before, lost Steven Nelson this year. They really need a bit more reinforcement there. Levi Wallace is one of the more underrated corners, I'd say, last season. And I think he could be a nice solid fit in Pittsburgh. And obviously the headliner is the Trubisky move, but that's not really why I'm giving it a B plus. But pertaining to Trubisky, I think we saw really his second year in Chicago, with the year where they made it to the playoffs. He was a solid quarterback, and that was with the head coaching abilities of Matt Nagy, which really is just not
Are
very good.
not
Not
existent.
good.
Yeah.
So if he goes to a team like the Steelers, who have, I'd say, more weapons at receiver and kind of a much better head coaching staff, I think don't be surprised if he actually succeeds. And if he doesn't, then move on from him in 2 years and start over. I think it's kind of a low risk, high reward situation for the Steelers. So I like that move. And I think I've overall liked their offseason.
Yeah. That's definitely, I think this grade isn't based on really what they've done, but they haven't gotten worse. And I think they added some good pieces. But we'll move on now to the Cleveland Browns. Again, a team that had some big moves. They traded for Amari Cooper, and then they just went and traded for Deshaun Watson. Baker Mayfield is still on their roster, which a lot of people are asking, like, what if he's still on the roster when the season begins? Again,
I doubt it.
We would assume, I doubt it. But again, I think a team that really did a ton. They got that offense now with Nick Chubb, with Kareem Hunt, with Amari Cooper. They obviously lost Jarvis Landry. Odo Beckham we know has been gone, but he's been linked to a return to Cleveland. ESPN Cleveland Insider said he predicts he said OBJ is going back to Cleveland on a live stream, but you didn't hear it from me, is what he said. So that would be crazy if he goes back. And I think a lot of teams were waiting to see where Watson would go before they made their decision. So I wouldn't be surprised if Cleveland goes out and gets some more players, the ones that are left. But again, the grade is based off what they did to that offense, and it's been completely transformed. It's now a elite offense with Deshaun Watson. Assuming he does play, that changes. He's a top 5 quarterback when healthy and when playing at the level we know he can play. So again, whether you think they gave up too much for Deshaun Watson, I think the Amari Cooper trade was fantastic, absolute steal what they got for Cooper. And I think again, with Deshaun Watson, I think he'll be great. So again, I think look, no matter what they traded for Deshaun Watson, they gotta have had it, unless it was something ridiculous. The offseason they had was successful. So yeah, there we have it. We know Deshaun is in Cleveland right now.
Yep.
So we'll see.
Did see that. I think also they didn't make much other moves other than the Cooper move and the Watson move.
Right.
But I think when you don't even give up a player for either of those guys and for Cooper just giving up a couple of day 3 picks, I think that's already a really successful offseason. I really like what the Browns did there. Obviously, the Deshaun Watson situation still is pending, and this grade is definitely subject to change depending on the ruling of the cases. But right now, I'd say A, B range. I think they had a pretty good offseason.
Yeah. All right, we'll move on now to the last team. That is the Baltimore Ravens. Obviously, big deal. So we saw them got Marcus Williams, and then we were like, oh, they got Darius Smith, and then he pulled out and is now with the other purple team, and that's I think he likes purple. He's with the Minnesota Vikings now. But again, an offseason that I think was good. I would say out of this division, definitely wasn't the best, but you've seen what they did. I really like the Marcus Williams signing, and that was kind of the main deal. We saw them. We obviously saw from them, but again, they didn't get much worse. And I think that a big fan of the Marcus Williams one. And not much to say here for the Ravens. I think it was a good offseason looking back on it, and just like the Steelers one, not many huge moves, but you look at, is a team better than they were last year? And I would say, yeah, well, it might not be marginal. I think they're slightly better than they were last year. So I'd give this a good free agency. I think 1 or 2 more signings would have bumped this grade up, but I think they've done what they can.
Yeah, I think I like the Marcus Williams signing. Paid a lot for him, but I still think it's a pretty good signing.
Yeah.
Also got Morgan Moses from the Jets.
Oh,
which,
right,
again,
right.
They needed offensive lineman reinforcements, and they got that. Obviously, Villanueva was not the answer in Baltimore. So Moses, like Ian said earlier, durable offensive line. You know what you're getting out of him, and he should be a solid fit in Baltimore. And obviously, the main reason I think why they're B minus is the Zadarius Smith situation. They could have gotten a huge edge rushing piece. Instead, they miss out on him. They still don't have a good opposite edge to Odafe away. So I'd say B minus here. So not terrible, but not amazing.
Yeah. There we go. We'll move on now to another division, and we're looking at the so this is not a great division, the South, but this isn't a particularly in terms of grade wise the best one, but we're looking at the Tennessee Titans here, and not much. Again, there's not much to say about this. Obviously, let go of Roger Saffold, and besides that, let go of Julio Jones. They've gotten worse, I would say. That's kind of at the end of the day what we've seen from them. Malcolm Butler as well, now with the Patriots. So not much from the Titans. Again, I don't have much to say, but you kind of, when grading these, you look at, did they get better? Did they get worse? And I would say they got slightly worse. That's what I have to say.
Yeah, I think really they lost little, but they gained little. I think really one of the most quietest kind of somewhat big free agent acquisitions that I didn't even notice until recently. They actually got Austin Hooper from the Cleveland Browns, which I think that is it's not a bad signing, but I was taken aback by it. I didn't even know it happened. But other than that, it kind of sums up Tennessee's offseason. They were very quiet, which, maybe for better, maybe for worse, but yeah, not really much to say here.
Yeah. Not much, but we'll move on now, and that is the Texans. And whilst we do have a lower grade, I think if you're the Texans, I think the grade is like that because they haven't done much. They haven't moved and got anyone. And at the end of the day, without Deshaun Watson, how attractive of a city is Houston, and of a team is Houston. But they got a ton of value from Watson. And again, I think what they'll take out of this free agency is we have a ton of picks now, and we can go and rebuild this team. We know Davis Mills is going to be that guy, which we thought would be, and which we predicted to be. So again, not much to say about the Texans. You got a ton of picks, you got a value, you moved on from Deshaun Watson finally after the past 2 years or year and a half of turmoil. And that this team is now rebuilding, and you have the assets to do that. So I would expect them to draft good this year, probably won't be that good next year. And then they'll hopefully sign some big guys the year coming, and hopefully start to become a contender like they were with Deshaun.
Yeah, I think though the problem with Houston is that they did lose some options. Really, obviously, besides Deshaun Watson, they lost Justin Reed, one of their better players, one of the solid safeties in the NFL. You lost some kind of depth pieces like Jake Martin, like Tyrod Taylor. Also lost AJ Moore, another safety. But they really didn't re-sign much players. They're just signed players in general. I mean, I know they signed Grugier Hill, but other than that, they were very quiet. But I think one of the things that kind of makes this offseason, I'd say, not terrible, is that they traded Deshaun Watson for 3 first-round picks. So for the next 3 years, they're getting 2 first-round picks each year, which I think is a pretty solid move. So I originally put them at a C. I think actually it's a bit better than that, but I don't think it was a bad offseason by Houston. I think they did and kind of the best they could have done in the situation that they were in.
Right. We'll move on now to the Indianapolis Colts, who again, this one kind of let go of Carson Wentz, go get Matt Ryan. And that's kind of their offseason at the end of the day. They didn't do much else beside that, assuming that they'll go and get some receivers in the draft. But reason to be skeptical for Matt Ryan from what the quarterback position has been like in the past years for Indianapolis. I will say, out of all of the guys they've had in the past 3-4 years, I think Matt Ryan is the best. And I would, maybe he'll go and do something with them. And at the end of the day, while Wentz didn't bring them to the playoffs, they were winning games, and you have Jonathan Taylor in another year, in his 3rd year. So hopefully he'll be explosive. That's kind of what that's kind of what I have for the Colts. I think Matt Ryan's the Matt Ryan deal is kind of what separates them, and what is the biggest thing for the Colts, or what we saw in the free agency period.
Yeah, I think it was one of them, again, another quiet offseason. I think kind of the only real loss that I feel like could impact them is the loss of Mark Lewinsky, their guard, went to the Giants. But I think other than that, again, this offseason was mainly they got rid of Carson Wentz and they got Matt Ryan. And I think the reason why they're so high at a B is the fact that they were able to get trade Wentz and get 3 third-round picks, which I think was based their price. They also swapped second-round picks where they moved up in the second round, which I think is pretty good value for a guy that's proven to be kind of just not the guy, and also someone who really just has a pretty big cap hit. So he wasn't really that attractive an option. They were able to get him, move him for a decent price, which I really like. And then they traded for Matt Ryan, who is, obviously isn't as good as he was, obviously a few years ago, but I think with the right system, obviously Atlanta really had nothing last year other than Kyle Pitts because Calvin really did take a step away from the game. So I think with the Colts, they made kind of some moves that kind of depend on how well Matt Ryan does. But I think it was overall quiet offseason other than the quarterback moves. I think they did okay.
All right, we'll move on now to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Wow, interesting team.
Where the grade looks like they may have not done a lot, they did a ridiculous amount of moves.
Yep.
Darius Williams, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, Zay Jones. But Surge, when I say those names, are any of them? Oh wow, it's a good signing.
I wouldn't say so, especially for the prices that they paid.
The shocking what we thought was $21 million a year for Christian Kirk, who was a wide receiver 3 on the Cardinals, which again, it's not that much. It's still a ridiculous amount of money for him. But look, I think Jacksonville had the right idea, and I think they understood, look, we have money to spend, so we're going to go spend it. But none of those players will. And again, I do think Christian Kirk could end up being really like good. Like I think Christian Kirk could end up being a wide receiver
definitely.
1. But I think you give him the payment that much money when he shows he can be that guy. And then again, I think the Darius Williams signing, I would say I really like that one. The Evan Ingram, I'm a Giants fan. I don't think he'll do much for you. I think at the end of the day, this grade to me is thank Christian Kirk's agent, because that man is some type of wizard for what the deal he got for Christian Kirk. But again, I think they spent money. I think they brought in talent and they'll be better. But, getting Zay Jones and Christian Kirk and not re-signing DJ Chark to me doesn't really make sense because I don't see some gap between all of them. But that's kind of what I have to say for the Jaguars. A little bit of a confusing one. I mean, I think they spent the money in the wrong places or just gave too much money. It's like in Madden when you just, you just add money because, you can. But
it was
that's what I got. That's what my thoughts are on that one.
Yeah, I think it was definitely probably the craziest, most interesting offseason for any team. But they spent a lot of money, obviously, on Kirk. They got Brandon Sheriff, the guard from Washington, Foley Alakun from Atlanta, Darius Williams from the Rams, Foley Acosta from the Jets, and obviously Zay Jones from the Raiders. And I think when you look at it, they spent probably too much money, definitely too much money, I'd say. But the reason why they aren't like in the D or the F range is because even though they spent too much money, I still think they did get a bit better. They did get better, and that is probably usually the most important thing about free agency. And because they got better, I think they do deserve to be in kind of that C range. And obviously, this is a great subject to change. Like if the Christian Kirk move just does not pay off at all, or if all these guys just end up flopping, then this is going downhill fast. But for now, it's just so hard to grade because they spend so much money, but we don't know how many of these guys are or are not going to pan out. So I'm going to say C for now for the Jaguars.
Yeah, the thing is, it's just so hard to see these being some, the signings and then them turning out to be really successful. But we'll move on now to the Denver Broncos, last division here. And again, this is the most interesting one. We're making you guys wait until the end. And what the one that gets this off is obviously trading for Russell Wilson. Not out of the blue, a little bit out of the blue. And then obviously they got Randy Gregory, who I think is unblockable. Unless you double team him, obviously didn't end up getting Von Miller. But again, I think it was an offseason that was kind of, those two guys were the main guys he brought in, and we know how good Russell Wilson is. And again, it's in a division that is so tough that I think getting Russell Wilson, moving on from Drew Lock, obviously they let go of they traded Noah Fant as well. I really think it was, again, do I think Russell Wilson necessarily will win them a Super Bowl? I don't know. Do I think he'll even win them this division? I don't know. But now with Tyreek Hill being traded, it looks like this division might be a little bit more. This division could be very much volatile throughout the year. I think that my whole thing for the Broncos is they did what they could. They are committed to going and winning, and I think they always understood they had the defense for it, and they went out and got some offensive pieces. And that offensive piece I think that was missing was a good quarterback. So I think he kind of fix the puzzle for Denver, but a really good offseason for them. I think, as much as they could do.
Yeah, definitely agree there. I think Denver, obviously the headline move is trading for Russell Wilson, which obviously is a huge move. They've got really, like I said, the team to compete in a loaded AFC West. They've got solid receivers like Sutton and Judy, and you got running backs like Javonte Williams and a solid offensive line. They've got pieces there. And on the defense, where they were losing some guys, they really managed to do a good job replacing a lot of these guys or re-signing some of these guys. They re-signed Josie Jewell, their linebacker, who did very well before he did get injured. You
Right.
added guys like Randy Gregory, who originally was expected to move back to the Cowboys and then did a complete 180 and went to the Broncos. Adding DJ Jones, one of the better run defenders in the league from the 49ers. K'Wan Williams, a slot cornerback from the
Right.
Niners. And Alex Singleton, another linebacker from Philly. They made a lot of good moves on that defense to adding to an already really good defense with Bradley Chubb, Pat Surtain, and Justin Simmons. So I really like what they've done. I think on both sides of the ball, they're a top 5 team roster wise
Yeah.
in the league, probably, I'd say. So good moves here. I think they deserve to be in that A position.
All right, we'll move on now, and that's the Las Vegas Raiders,
Mm.
who we saw trade for Devontae Adams. They got Chandler Jones, traded Yannick Ngakoue for Rock Ya-Sin. I think the A has to be there. While you can argue that they traded too much for Devontae Adams, they got the best receiver in the NFL.
Yep.
I mean, this team is going to be scary. Him and Hunter Renfrow should be a duo to watch. Great to see Hunter Renfrow teach Devontae Adams some things, but it was a crazy deal. And then obviously Chandler Jones and Max Crosby will be really scary. And I think Chandler Jones is an upgrade over Ngakoue. Although I don't do I necessarily understand it? I think Ngakoue and Max Crosby for a majority of the season and they may have ended with the most pressures by a pass rushing duo. So I think that was kind of a why fix it, because it wasn't broken, but they did. And the trade, it was Ngakoue for Rock Ya-Sin straight up. If I'm
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So again, that's pretty one-sided. If you're the Colts, Rock Ya-Sin, I wouldn't say matches the level that Ngakoue does in terms of value, but I think the rest of the deals they did kind of hide that. And again, I mean, the Devontae Adams one is just, getting him is huge. Immediately. And then the Chiefs losing Tyreek Hill. So now you have the best receiver in division, and you would still have the best receiver in division, even if they had Tyreek Hill. But, I think it just, this offense now is very scary. Obviously still have Josh Jacobs and Derek Carr. So, I mean, it's hard to not give this an A.
Yeah, I think this was, again, another great offseason for a team of the AFC West. I think with the Raiders, again, like you said, even if you do give up pretty big haul, you're getting the best receiver in the NFL. So you really can't complain. Chandler Jones, a huge move, really kind of putting him and Max Crosby got to be one of the better edge rushing duos in the NFL. And you credit to the Raiders. They could have just said, hey, we're going to rebuild. Everyone else in the AFC West just seems too talented for us, but they're going in guns a-blazing, and they were getting their own amazing players. And I think, again, in terms of talent on the offense side of the ball, especially at the skill positions, they're up there with anyone. They've got the best receiver in the NFL, one of the best slot receivers in the NFL, if not the best slot receiver in the NFL. You got one of the best tight ends in the league when healthy.
Right.
And you got a quarterback who really proved to be top 10 caliber last season, carrying a team with, again, injured receiving core, obviously through numerous tragedies, and they still managed to somehow make the playoffs through all of that, and they're getting a lot better. So watch out for the Raiders next season. I think they could be one of the better teams in the AFC if everything does click, and it all kind of hinges on how good of a job Josh McDaniels can do in the coaching department.
Yeah, and that's the big question. That's the big question going into the season. But now we have the Kansas City Chiefs and the big one, losing Tyreek Hill in quite a shocking way. I think no matter how you look at it, no matter how good you think Patrick Mahomes is, this is a huge hit for the Chiefs. So I don't know if you saw, they just signed Marcus Valdes.
I literally just saw, I got the notification while we were recording.
Yeah. So that immediately fills a hole of Tyreek Hill, and I think they won't miss him. I'm joking. Our right side, they obviously brought in Juju, who I do think can be a wide receiver one in this league. I think definitely a good signing if you're the Chiefs, but I mean, I'm not even a Chiefs fan. It really was sad to see Tyreek go, because it wasn't like he needed to, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like this was it was literally out of the blue.
He was still going to get paid decent money.
Yeah. And that's why I hate the drive for money in the league. And I know, I'm not a professional athlete, but to me, it's mind-boggling to move from the Chiefs, who are obviously a contender, and Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league, and you're the obvious number one receiver, to go and move to Miami, who are not a contender. You'll help them. And again, it's build your own legacy. He wants to go and go somewhere else. But, it wasn't like there was lingering issues. Like, this was literally within 2 hours. We saw that he was approved to get traded and then got traded. So it was a little bit too quick for me.
It was out of the
like,
blue.
Yeah,
Just
it was kind of like, whose Madden game are you in?
Yeah.
So again, that was a little bit sad. It just seems a little unsavory to me. But that's what it is. And then besides that, not much from the Chiefs. Obviously, Juju Smith-Schuster.
Justin Reed
Ward left. Justin Reed, I know they signed, but not much. Again, when you have Mahomes, there's not much of an issue. But I think now it's like, is Olave in play in the draft? Is Burks in the play in the draft? I think receiver now is probably going to be the option.
Going to be one of the picks.
Choice in the draft. So we'll see that. But who knows? Maybe they go get Sky Moore in the draft and he turns into Tyreek Hill.
Who knows?
But again, I think the Chiefs, losing Tyreek Hill, no matter how you put it, is a huge loss.
Oh yeah, 100% agree. I think when you're looking at Kansas City right now, they have a huge hole, even with signing Marquez Valdes-Scantling. It's not like, oh, great, we have the next Tyreek Hill. He is a solid option, but he is not Tyreek Hill, nor is he even close to Tyreek Hill. But I still think the Chiefs did a solid job with the Tyreek Hill trade. They got a first and a second, 2 fourths and a 6, which isn't bad for a supposed just deep threat receiver. And you clear up so much cap space. I think they have like one of the most cap space in the league right now. So they can still sign other guys that they want.
Right.
I know they did just sign MVS, which I don't know what that does to the cap now. I don't know how much they signed him for.
10 or 3 years, 30 million. So 10 per.
10 per. Okay. Yeah. Not terrible considering the receiver market now that Christian Kirk got 21 million a year.
Yeah.
But I think they did a good job clearing up cap. They replaced Matthew with a younger safety and Justin Reed, and they have a lot of draft capital that they can use to, again, continue to upgrade the receiver room. So you're losing Tyreek Hill, but you might end up getting 3 options. You get a draft option, you get MVS, and you get Juju, which isn't the end of the world, especially considering you do have probably the best receiving tight end in the league in Travis Kelce. So obviously for Chiefs fans, it seems a bit bleak right now, but it might not end up actually being the worst thing in the world for them. So I think obviously not ideal for Kansas City, but I wouldn't say it's been a terrible offseason.
Right. But now we'll move on to a team I think had the best offseason and the best free agency, and that was the Los Angeles Chargers, who traded for Khalil Mack, got a great deal for him, signed JC Jackson, and they're still in play for Bobby Wagner, which I think would be crazy if they got Bobby Wagner. Derwin James. That defense is ridiculous. Ridiculous. I mean, there's not much to say here. They addressed everything they needed to. And I think bringing in, arguably one of the best corners, one of the best ball hawking corners, if not the best ball hawking corner in the NFL, who's still, I believe he's only 26, 27, is huge in his prime. And Khalil Mack, who, while he was injured last year, still wreaks havoc, and pairing him with Joey Bosa is just scary. And then Sebastian Joseph Day, which I think was a great signing, really good run stuffing defensive tackle, and taking him away from a Los Angeles rival, although not in the same division and not in the same conference. But I love the sign. I love this offseason. And again, then you have Justin Herbert at quarterback. So it's just even more scary if you're opposing team. But Suraj, what's your take on their offseason?
Yeah, I think the reason why they get an A+ here is because unlike other teams like the Dolphins and the Raiders and the Broncos, who gave up significant draft capital to get their big guys, the worst that they gave up was a 2nd-round pick for Khalil Mack, which is great value. Like you said, you got JC Jackson, which is a huge move. They could get other guys. They also added Sebastian Joseph Day to kind of help their run defense, which was very bad last season. Right. And basically, this is an investment in kind of saying, let's not make Justin Herbert and the offense carry the entire team. Because we saw a stat, I think, where like 61% of the games, like Herbert's defense is allowing 29 points or more, which is just unacceptable. So I think at this point in time, I think it's a good move for the Chargers. I think they're another team that's showing, hey, we're all in on going for a Super Bowl. We have the quarterback to do it. We have the offense to do it. We just have to invest in this defense to make sure it's one of the at least competent to make sure that the offense can do its job and win a football game. So I really love this offseason for the Chargers. Another insanely scary pass rushing duo in the league with Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. So yeah, great offseason for the Chargers.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys did enjoy the free agency grades. Let us know what your guys' grades for teams were down below. NFC, as we said, to come. We'll be grading the offseason, or excuse me, the free agency for them. So let us know what you guys think. Cian McDermott, Suraj, Kadali, follow us on social media, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and then obviously subscribe. More videos to come. Our draft live stream. I'm telling you guys, we got to promote this. Our draft live stream. It's going to be crazy. NFL draft live stream coming late in April. Make sure you guys subscribe, turn on notifications for that. And then obviously a ton of draft content we will start to pump out to you guys. So make sure you stay tuned on the channel for all of that. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Peace.